So, welcome to part 3. So part 3 is more to do with the website functionality and how to use it to do your different type of analysis with it. So what we'll do is we'll go systematically through all the different pages that we have here, and I'll show you where all the functionality is. There is a manual available here as well on the right side of the page here. You'll see there's a manual. If you click on that, it's about 49 pages, but it was done in PowerPoint. So it's mostly like screenshots with arrows and comment boxes that say, click here for that and click there for that to do the different things. So you can do that, or otherwise that's exactly what me and Dianca are there for, is to assist you guys. So let's start with the first thing here is this this field overview page. If you log into FruitLook, this is the first thing that you will see. If it says here the 2019-20 season, the data that you see here is the latest, most available data on the website. So because it's Thursday morning, and yeah, it's Thursday morning, and the new week's data hasn't loaded, that data that you see there is about 2 weeks old, if you want to call it that. So the best time to look at this data is on a Friday morning, because the data gets loaded on a Thursday afternoon, evening. So that's the best time. Now, my account here, which we're looking at now, is not really like the model account, because I do a lot of things and pull in testing blocks. But the idea behind it is that you start with a cultivar name and then a block number, because this list automatically starts alphabetically. Now, as you can see, I've got many a field. And lots of different things. Now, if you are a consultant or a researcher, or if you have multiple farms, that's where the categories comes in quite handy. As I have lots of fields, but I have lots of categories to shorten the list, to put the most applicable ones together. Now, if you don't have multiple farms, but let's say you only have one farm, but you have early, late, and mid-season cultivars, you can make that your categories. You can always change the categories and things like that as well. Or you can filter this crop, so you can filter according to categories, but you can also filter according to the crop that you have. Let's say I just want to look at all my oil seeds, because I can. And now we are limited to only the oil seed crops that we have, which are all canolas. So you can always make these lists a little shorter. But for now, let me just quickly keep on all of them. So remember when I said that kind of 5-minute thing that you do on a Friday morning? This is exactly how you do it. So the first thing that I always do is, because this list is alphabetical and let's say you put it up correctly, then I want to see if there's, under the same type of cultivars, any deviation from that. And I can see here, these are actually barley fields. There's very low growth, but here is quite high, and there's a really high one, and that and then there's a bit of a lower one, but I'm not sure. Let's check blocks that are closer together. These two Cabernets, see, they're close together, so that's fine. So you're looking for anything that might jump out for your cultivars. And then the other thing I do is, after I've run through all the biomasses, I sort my ET deficit from high to low. And you do that by clicking on that downward facing arrow. So the first thing I see here is this gem block, which is Avos in Georgia's area. And I see that that has an ET deficit of 10.8 millimeters and only an actual of 1.8, which means that it had way more of a deficit than what it did an actual evapotranspiration. So that means there's some serious stress going on in that specific block there. The growth is also quite low there. So I don't know what happened there. But let's look at, and then we have this Shiraz block. It's not really good to look at them now, because there's nothing happening now. So what you'll only pick up now is either the cover crop or the weed cover that's currently running there. So we have an ET deficit of 4.2 and an actual of 4.99. So in other words, 50% of our potential was lost through ET deficit. So when you look at your ET deficit, to kind of get whether it's a high or a low value for you, we say anything between 0 and 5 is kind of okay. But don't just look at the ET deficit on its own. Look at it compared to the actual evapotranspiration as well. Let's say you had a deficit here of, let's go to the mid-season. You can change the dates here as well. Where's peak season? Let's go that midweek of Jan. I don't know what happened there, but look, it jumped up at me. Okay, let's do that ET deficit game again. All right. Now we see that this Kalamata block at a 7.59 and a 13.9 actual. So it lost about a third of its potential versus, why did all of them do so bad? Actually, any of these examples you can count on. Yeah, so the point is actually look at how it relates to the actual evapotranspiration and kind of how big of a component that ET deficit is to the potential, which is the actual ET and the ET deficit together. So always look at them together. Don't just look at them and on their own. The other thing you must also look at is if you suspect that your irrigation system is not delivering what it should, you can even look at your actual ET to compare that as well. Look, your actual ET is very much linked to your biomass production as well, so you'll pick it up there in any way. But even if you sort again here, your crops in alphabetical order, it's the opposite end now, but you see that one of them is, I think they pulled that one out. Like, let's say the one had an actual ET of 25 millimeters and the other one only had an actual ET of 18, but there's not much of an ET deficit. That can mean that there's something wrong, that your irrigation system might not be delivering as much as it needs. So the growth is going to be less, but the plant kind of adapts to that less growth as well. So it's not going to give you that ET deficit. So you have to kind of look at it together and go investigate things like that as well. When was the last time you actually tested your irrigation system to check that it really delivers what it is supposed to deliver, top and bottom end? Because a lot of people test the front pressure, but they very seldomly test the pressure right at the end of the line as well. Look, drip, a lot of it is pressure compensated, or you have to have a certain amount of pressure for the drip to go through. But micro sprinklers are one of those things that even when your pressure goes down, it still runs, but it's not going to deliver as much as it wants. So do yourself a favor and actually go check your irrigation system that it delivers. Because you might think, if I let my irrigation system run for 2.5 hours, this is the amount of water that it's going to put down. Does it really put that much water down? Go check that. So this is how you use this. Go look at if there's any discrepancies between your cultivars. Go sort your ET deficit from high to low. Look if there's anything that jumps out that you don't like. If there's nothing wrong, move on with your day and go about with your business. If there's something that doesn't look right, you can open up that field and go look at why did it all of a sudden drop, or why is it not looking the same like the others. So I have chosen here to look at these 4 parameters here. I like these 4. It's like biomass is my growth, actual ET is how much water is used, ET deficit is if it shows if there's some form of plant stress, and my biomass water use efficiency is just the general health of the plant. A healthy, functioning plant has got a higher biomass water use efficiency than the others. So that's why I like these 4. But you can modify them. Let's say you are more interested in the NDVI and the cumulative biomass production. Yeah, you could change it here with the modify parameters. So you can choose a maximum of 5 and a minimum of 1. So even if you just want to see that one, you can select that. Or if you want 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See, you cannot choose more. You can only choose 5. What a lot of people do is they like to have the vegetation index, not the leaf area. They'll have that 4 with the vegetation index in there. Then they know, okay, that field is fully grown. So now we have that vegetation index in there as well, and which also just gives you a general feel of not only how thick is my coverage, but also how healthy is that coverage that I have. Then we have the delete fields from list. So if you have a field here that you're not going to use anymore, I'm not talking about a field that you pulled out and now you're going to reestablish. I'm talking about if you drew the field completely off, you can delete it. So you just click on delete field from list, select the fields that you want to delete, and you go right to the bottom of the list and you say confirm deletion. It's going to ask you, are you sure you want to delete this? Yes or no? Then you can just say, okay, but I'm not going to do that. And that's how you delete fields from the list. Then there's a last function here, which is called the Smart Export Field Data. And this is how you can get this data exported into a CSV file. So you can do your own analysis on it, draw up your own graphs for what you want to do, calculate your water requirement, things like that, which you need the functionality in Excel of. So it's very simple. It's a smart export field data. You select the season that you want. It can only do one season at a time. If you have a lot of fields like me, you can make the list a little shorter with categories or even crop. And then what I would recommend is keep your instantaneous data sets and your weekly data sets separate. So just to recap, your weekly data sets is the biomass and the 3 waters, and your instantaneous data sets is your 2 nitrogens, your leaf area, and your vegetation index. And the reason for that is when that data gets exported, the dates are the column heads. And there's different dates of the instantaneous and the weekly data, so there's going to be a lot of gaps in your data set. So rather keep them separate. So what you then do is, let's say I want all my Lucerne fields, which I've probably got. Oh, I've got 2. Okay. How's my citrus looking? That's a little more. Okay, so let's say I want those 4, and I just say then export data. I just quickly want to reshare my screen. So now you'll see what it does is it opens it up in an Excel sheet. Now, if you've never worked with CSVs before, a CSV file, it opens up in Excel, but it stands for comma separated value. If this is all not in columns, but separated by commas, because that's how it's initially exported, it's very easy to kind of transpose that data or to, I don't know, to convert it. So you just select that first column where all the data is in, you go to data, go to text to columns, and then you keep it on the limited next. And you remember I told you that CSV stands for comma separated value, and you click on comma and you say finish. Then the data will look like this. So as you can see, when we export the data, it's raw data. It gives you all of the information here with your dates right at the top, actual ET biomass production, ET deficit, biomass water sufficiency per field. And if you want to do, let's say, a water requirement calculation, that will be that first one. You can do it now in Excel. Let me just, actual ET, biomass production, ET def, and this is the biomass water sufficiency. Okay, now we can keep track. Okay, so let's say you want to work out your water requirement for this specific year for this block. So what you'll just do is you'll do the sum function. Now you can choose, do I want the entire 12 months if it's at the end of the season, or do I just want in the growth period? For all intents and purposes, I'm just going to use the whole period because it's a lot easier. So you do a sum function and you just add up all of the dates or to the date that you want to use. Let's say you have something like vegetables that's got a shorter growing period. You can only then calculate for the 3 months, or potatoes at 6 months. You can just use the 6 months for that as well. You can even do a cumulative biomass production. So that will then be your cumulative biomass production for the same period. That will be your cumulative ET deficit. But you want to make a change for the biomass water sufficiency. You don't want the sum function of it. What you want to do is you want to look at what is your average biomass water sufficiency through that whole season. So what you can then do is you can then do that for quite a few blocks because they're all the same amount of parameters. And now we can see that one has got the highest biomass water sufficiency. Then, oh no, actually this one has 4.27 versus the others that's 4.9, 4.8, 4.35. So you can then compare your different parameters with each other. And even your water calculations. That one, actual ET is 1,100, where this one is 969. 960, those two look is kind of similar. And this one is 521. Why is this one so low? That's amazing. So yeah, you can do all sorts of these type of calculations. So that's how you can calculate your water requirement. Now, this water requirement, remember we spoke about the ET minimum and the ET maximum. Hello. So your ET minimum will then be equal to just your actual evapotranspiration. So then that will be your millimeters per season. Your ET maximum will then be equivalent to your actual ET plus your ET deficit. Now you've got your top and bottom margin. That is millimeter per season. If you work rather with cubic meters per hectare per season, then it's that value times 10. Let me just keep it up to the formula there. So that's how you convert millimeters to cubic meters per hectare per that season. So you can use that, and then from that you can even then do your yield water use efficiency, because we calculated the biomass water use efficiency, but now you can calculate, let's say, how many tons of fruit do I get per cubic meter of water that was used. You can even do that with your irrigation applied. Everything like that. So this is how you can extract the data and then do graphs in the way that you want to use it for, which is not always allowed in the website itself. Sorry guys, my throat's starting to kill me now. Okay, let's go back to the website. So that is the smart export field data. So now we've basically covered the first page, which is the My Field analysis. So if we open up a field, what am I going to show you? It's not helping me. I don't know. Okay, I'm going to take a block now. Let me just see if it's the one that I think it is. Yeah, it's this one. Okay. So the reason why I'm choosing this block is I don't work with these blocks every single day, but my house is quite close by and I walk past it quite regularly. So I can kind of see what they're doing. And all I can say is that it is wet now, like very wet, like walk with gumboots and lose a gumboot wet at the moment here at the bottom close to the dam. So let's quickly look at how to interpret these pages. So let's say you opened a field. So you could have done opening that field by just clicking on one of the names here on the My Field overview list. You could have just clicked on one of those names, or you could go like I did through the My Fields, then it's category and then choosing a block. So there you'll see the basic shape. You can change the name of that field. But if you change the name, it will only change it for that season, not the historical data. And the reason for that is if you, let's say, have a block and you are replanting it, you pulled it out, you're re-establishing something else there, then instead of deleting the block and redrawing it, the shape stays the same. You just change the name, the category, the crop, everything like that, and you go on with your business. So you can change it by just putting something there, clicking outside, and it's automatically saved there. You can change the category, you can change the crop, All of these details are just for you. It doesn't make any difference to our data. It's just for you to help you if you want to add more data there. Then you'll see here, when we look at the data, you'll see there's the three main categories of data: growth, moisture, minerals, and then there's this yellow selection that always opens up. It's called My Selection. That is the data sets, that is the data sets that you've chosen to see here. So we've got that 5 now. So let's say I don't want the vegetation index, I only want those 4, and I go back and I refresh that page. You will see it will only show the 4 that I selected. Don't embarrass me now, Internet Explorer or Chrome. I will. Oh, it's because I haven't selected it yet. Ah, there we go. See, so it's basically every field, each one of those data sets that you've chosen, it automatically pulls them all together. So instead of going to growth for biomass production and vegetation index, and then to moisture to see these 3 bad boys, now they're all together in one group here. So the graphs all work on the same way. You have every week a new data set gets added, and the point that's highlighted there, that's the value there, 120 kilograms per hectare per week, is the average value of all the pixels that you see down here. Now you'll see, here's the legend. So we see there's quite a lot of variation going from in the 50s or high, let's call it 60s up here to about 170 in these high areas, and then I guesstimate about 200 up there. So there's quite a lot of variation in this block, and it's weeds. This is a bush vine pinotage. It runs all the way. There's a slope. It's very like a curved slope all the way down to the dam. There's a bit of a dip in there where it kind of evens out, and then it picks up ever so slightly back up to the dam again. So there's quite a few dips and valleys in this block, and the rows go down like that. So this is end of the season. There's no leaves. The few that are left are just stragglers that are like holding on for dear life and not dropping. So let's go rather to something like mid-season. Let's go here end of November. See, now that value has changed because that is now the average value. Now the map changed, but remember that pink value was previously 273. Now that pink value is 1,753. So don't just look at the colors, look at what the legends say at the bottom that color mean. If you struggle to look at the scale here and you can't get, okay, if this happens, that is just the processing of the map that went wrong. But it's nothing to worry about. Let me just see if it goes away. I fixed it. Okay. I did not fix it. Okay, just ignore the red there. So if you want to see what the specific value of a pixel is, this is where this function comes in. It's called the select pixel function. So you click on it, you select your favorite color. Let's say that light blue color. What is it called? Turquoise. And it will give you the GPS coordinate of that pixel and then what the value of that pixel is. This is quite handy if you don't have rows and you just have a solid field, because with rows, this is 20 meter pixels. You can kind of like, okay, there's like 4 rows, 5 rows in a pixel. You can count out the rows. But if you're like in a field, it's not that easy. You can't really do that. So now you can just kind of document that GPS coordinate for you, and it's easier to walk there. So that color is 1,043. If we click on this pink color, which is much higher, that's 1,691. That's like, what's it, a half, 50% higher than that. So why is there such a big discrepancy? You can see as you go down lower here, this area sometimes even still in summertime, it's very wet and it's quite, I think there's salt buildup there as well because nothing grows there. You can see everything struggles growing there. So there is a bit of a dip there, and you can see it. Now we can go to the next, or 2 weeks back. Now again, look, that pink value is not the same because that legend keeps changing based on the values that we have. And we see again, we've got that kind of a decrease in value as you go down there. If you're seeing those very low values here on the edge, the reason for that is those pixels go over the road, and it's called an edge effect. If your edge effect is so high that it has a negative effect on the average value of your block, redraw your block a little further away from the road, then you don't get that big of an edge effect. We see again, we've got a much higher growth here than in this area here, but it's not exactly a straight line. So I think it's more due to soil differences. Now you can click from week to week, but it's not effective because the scale keeps jumping. So that's where this my field analysis comes in. While that loads, let me quickly show you. So remember we selected this pixel. Oh, well, we're going to select this pixel now. So that specific pixel, that blue, is 1,332. I can adjust this legend. I'm going to take this bottom one to 664, and I'm going to say recalculate. Now it means all those values are going to stretch out over the whole color scheme, and it's going to change all the colors. But if I click on that pixel, the value stays the same. And that is just to show you how much a difference a legend can make. So don't just look at the colors and go, oh, cold colors are good, warm colors are bad. Doesn't work like that. Go look at what the value tells you. But there's a lot of variation in this block. It's quite interesting. You can see all the values. So what you effectively get here at the bottom is a histogram. So you can see there's no real collection. There's so much variation that it's different zones, except for this area here, this specific color here. So I think that's because of that section there is the biggest part of it. But yeah, it's very interesting. Okay, my field analysis. So what my field analysis does is, instead of clicking from here from date to date to date and the legend keeps changing, what my field comparison does is it loads all of the fields for that season almost like in a ribbon. Why is this not in alphabetical order? It's going to be easier to just find this one here. Per pinotage. I'm going to add the biomass production. Okay, so it's loading. So what you'll see now is where that legend previously went to, the highest week that we got was 1,600. This one goes all the way to 3,000. So all our values are basically going to lie here. So we're not going to see a lot of contrast in it. So what we do is we can adjust this legend. But before we adjust it, you can adjust it, but every time you load a new parameter, it resets all the legends. So I want to see, was that variation there the previous year as well? So we've already loaded the 2019-20 season. Let's load the 2018-19 season as well. But remember, we changed the name from Pinotage 2 to Pinotage 2A. So now we just have to keep track, because I keep changing names and I keep losing them. Okay, now we've added that one. So what it's going to do, it's now going to load the next season right underneath it. And now the weeks are going to run parallel, which is great because then we can compare weeks with weeks. Page a little smaller. So you'll see kind of what happens here is the corresponding weeks of the different years line up with each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust this legend to a maximum of 1,800 and say recalculate. And I'm going to do the exact same thing with the previous year. Go to 1,800 and say recalculate, because now what we can do is the colors of the different blocks of the different years are going to mean exactly the same thing now. So now we see here early in the season there's very low growth, both of them. But what we're looking for is to see if that variation that we saw, is that similar? See, it only starts picking up here at the end of September. It's like this year was a week earlier than the rest. So what's interesting is last year they had a very big, it's quite much higher growth than the rest, where we don't see it here this year. Look at that. And we again see kind of like two thick strips going there. So what that could actually be, it could also be natural drainage that flows underneath that towards the dam. But you can see that I've actually seen, where was it, in Paul, where there was a very, very old river that ran down there, and you can see it in the soil. You can see from a satellite image, and you can see it definitely in the growth as well. And when it goes down like that, it kind of looks like it could be that. But you see this variation here, we don't see it as clearly this year as we did the previous years. I wonder why is that? But we can see very clearly that it's like two horizontal kind of organic areas, where this one was also quite organic, but it was more that way around. That's very weird. Now that kind of matches up with that. It's very interesting. To see that the pattern is kind of not even the same. Yeah, so Andrew just reminded me that 2019 was a much wetter and good October rain than 2018. Yeah, but even if it's wetter, then we had much better growth actually in 2018 than 2019. That's actually what's quite interesting to me. So that's the thing when it comes, this is a perfect example. So I know, like from afar, then I look at this block, like what's kind of there, what it looks like, but I don't know exactly the dates. I didn't keep record of the dates of when they pruned, if they went with a disc through there with the weeds, what the exact rainfall was, when was the heat waves, when was those type of things. If you have those type of records, you will make a lot more sense of these blocks. To just sit and say, oh no, but there is a rock outcrop there, or that part there tends to be quite saline, things like that as well. Yeah, see, that's the other thing with that part that's growing, that's a lot higher there. I don't know if it is actually the vineyard that was there, or if there's weeds, because there is a lot of so the vines aren't bunkies there, it's ridged, but there's a lot that grows in between those ridges as well. And I know, I didn't see it this year, but last year there was quite a lot of, I don't know what the real name was, I call it a olieboom. They have this almost like pumpkin shaped leaf, very tall plant, grows super quick, thick stems, and then they make those seed pods called molpita. So there was some of that in 2018 as well, but I haven't seen it in the 2019 season. So it could be that. See, even that, like if you get all of a sudden like a population of certain weeds growing that are quite prolific, that might also have an influence on your data at the end of the day. So you have to keep that in mind as well. But this is basically how this works. We've just done the biomass production, but you can even go now and let's remove the 18-19, and you can add, let's say, the ET deficit pattern or the actual ET pattern, and then look at what was my water use in that area compared to the growth or even the ET deficit. And that is what you would use if you want to look at a place to place your probes. So where you want to place your probe is you don't want to place it in the driest possible spot, and you don't want to place it in the weakest, in the wettest possible spot. You want to place it in the, what is it? The driest, most representative area of your field. So what you kind of do is with these kind of maps is you kind of select an area where you think you want to put your probe, or where your probe currently stands, and then kind of just mark it with your eye, and you'll see that middle block never, the position never changes, and you can just scroll through to see if that spot is applicable throughout seasons, and use the biomass production and the actual ET and the ET deficit to kind of get that perfect representative spot of that specific field, to look at where you want to place your probes. So that's how you use these field comparisons. Let's quickly go back. Oh, the Zoom thing keeps blocking my tabs. I'm going to move them down. Okay. Where was I? Okay. So this is an example of, we're back to this page again, where we're looking at the different parameters. So you'll see as you hover over a data point for the biomass production, which is a weekly data set, you'll get the specific date or the beginning and ending of the week. And you'll see our weeks start on a Wednesday and they end on a Tuesday, and then the data gets loaded on a Thursday. So it's called near real time. There's about a 3-day delay. If we move over, let's go to growth and go to the NDVI. Now you'll see those are not separated by weeks. Those are then the specific dates of when the satellite comes over. So if I'm not mistaken, I think the Sentinel-2 satellites, A and B, they move over us, I think it's about between 8:30 and 9:30 in the morning. So that's when they take literally a snapshot. So it's like a photo. So if you were halfway busy through that block, you will see that halfway is cut off there. And now with the NDVI, you see it went to almost nothing there, and then it popped up, and then it kind of, the values went up there, and that's where you started getting leaf growth and shoots, and then it started declining. But I have to say, was this the 1920? I don't know, these blocks didn't look so lekker this year. I don't know why. But yeah, that 0.25 is very low. Let me just quickly check there. If you see that your NDVI is high, and all of a sudden there's one week that it drops quite significantly, but the next week it comes back up, what could happen there is that sometimes because it's a snapshot, there might have been cloud cover over half of the block or the big majority of the block. Then what it does is it just takes all those little edge blocks, and that's in the calculation, and it throws the value off completely. No, there's actually just nothing going on there. That's so smooth. It looks fake. Okay, let's look at here mid-November. See, we see again that kind of variation that's in there. I'm pretty sure that's a soil difference. Actually, I live like right there. So I think tonight I must go and drop a GPS and just go look in that field to see if I've got if there's big changes. I know up there is not that wet, but down there it's like yeah, this is also not that wet, but I can go in there. So yeah, you have to kind of know what goes on foot level to make sense of the data. I can speculate for days, and that's the thing. If you want me to help you, I'm very creative when it comes to thinking of problems. So I can help you, and then you can just go, no, maybe, no. And then that's how we can see what could possibly be wrong with your block. So yeah, instantaneous data sets will have a specific date when you hover over the data points. Weekly data sets will have a week in between. But all of these data sets work in the same way. If you click on it, it will have a graph. The point that is highlighted there is the average value of all the pixels in here. Don't just look at the colors. and freak out and call me, everything is red, what is wrong? What does red mean? Then you have this histogram with the legend at the bottom. Look at what the legend's values are. Look at how big the difference in the contrast is between it. If you've got big contrast, is it really truly differences? Or is it just that the values are so close to each other that it pulls them out over the whole color scheme? So that is kind of how it works. Now you'll see here at the bottom, all of them have the same. You have a weekly legend, and then you have what we call a season legend. So if you click on that, what it does is it takes into consideration all of the weeks, and it creates its own little like standardized legend. But it's still the same. If you have to click from week to week, you have to change all of them to seasonal. And it doesn't stay on seasonal. You have to keep changing it. So, but you still see the values up here, but all it does is just puts it down there. It's very confusing. So yeah, if you want to rather compare the seasons with each other, rather use the field comparison. Now the big question is, we've gone through all of these different parameters, is we want to compare the different graphs with each other. That's again under the My Field Analysis page. So we've done the field comparisons, now we can do the graph comparisons. So with this is, you can compare as many blocks as you want, for as many years as you want, but you are limited to only 2 different parameters because it can only generate 2 y-axes. Where with the My Field comparison, there's no axes, so you can load as many parameters, blocks, years, whatever you want. With the graph comparison, you are limited. Let me quickly show you how to do it. Well, we're with the pinotage block, let's stick to it now. Let's compare this one, also the biomass production. And let's load over that biomass production. Let's look at its ET deficit. 2019. So here's the top tip when you fill this in. Fill it in like you read, from left to right and then down. Season, category, field, parameter. If you don't have a category, you don't have to click it. But don't do it the other way around because it resets the previous ones the whole time. Okay, here's another reason why I actually prefer to export my data than doing this. Unfortunately, if you load the same field in the same year for 2 different parameters, it's going to make them the same color to make it easier to compare. Because if you load, let's say, another pinotage field that's close by, it's going to make that another color. And it just gets confusing then. So your ET deficit is now the blocks, and your biomass production is the circles here. So if we look at this, this ET deficit, it was quite low. I mean, the top line is 5 millimeters. It just bounced, and that's perfect. That's perfect what you want when it comes to ET deficit management. You want it to look like a heartbeat. Close to 0, every now and then, ever so slightly a little blip, because then you know you're not over irrigating and you're really running that 0 line the whole time. But what happened here, I don't know, is there anyone from the viticulture here? When does one harvest pinotage? I can't remember that. Because it looked like they stopped irrigating here at the end of Jan, because you could see the ET deficit started climbing. Came back down, and I think that was rain, and it was just hovering there the whole time now. If you see it spike, okay, so that's probably then why they stopped. No, but why did they stop irrigating? They should have applied other things, but okay. So they probably stopped irrigating, and that's why it started climbing there. You can see a drastic decline in your biomass production as well. Your biomass production will very seldomly completely 0, because it's quite difficult for nothing to grow. You have to really punish the soil for nothing to grow. So you'll always see some level of growth still taking place when it's happening there, but that's perfect. So if you want to compare this now with, okay, this was, let's say, a better year than the previous years, then let's look at what did it look like in the previous year. So we can then load that same block over this. Keep going, mommy. Also going to load the ED deficit first while it's still there. This year they managed it better than last year. I'm going to write the biomass production now as well. I keep going past it. See, it only gives you two options because it's already selected. That's the two y-axis that we can load. See, so blocks of the same year, the same block in the same year will get the same color. They'll just change the, what do you call it? The data points, the shapes. See, this is just the same block for 2 different years with 2 parameters. It's very convoluted. It's very difficult to see. So if you want to use this, I would say just use 1 block for 1 year and then 2 parameters. And if you want to compare different blocks for just 1 parameter, then you can load a couple more years because then the colors will differ. So what I'm going to do is, we've looked already like the 2019-20, but what I want to do is I just want to see how the biomass production compared 2018 to 2019 season. So I'm going to remove the 2 ET deficits. So to remove it, you just click on these little crosses here. So one thing I've noticed actually, and that was through all of, through this whole season, different crops, different areas, is everyone had a drop in their biomass production here in December. Now I know we had rain and quite cold weather, I think here in the last week of December, and then there was a couple of weeks where it was quite cool, but not too cold, so it was very favorable for growth. There was enough light, but the water pressure deficit was just not there. So you'll see in those weeks also your biomass water use efficiency just spiked. I think it was the middle week in December. And I've noticed that in vines, fruit trees, pastures, natural felt, everything across the whole province in different growing areas, different microclimates. It was quite interesting to notice that. And I was wondering what it is, and that's when I started investigating to see whether it's weather effects. So you can see it kind of had a big negative effect here on it, on our growth, but the growth pattern kind of seems fine. It did have a bit, it did jump quite a lot here in November. And I'm trying to think of what happened there. And I can't, because the thing is, it's all about record keeping. If you don't have a weather station, that's fine. Take a diary. On a Friday, just make a note of what happened that week. Was it windy? Was it a heat wave that came through? Did it rain? Did it hail? Was there thunder? Anything like that. Or if you did anything significantly that week. Did the pump break? Did the filter block? Were there cable thieves that you couldn't irrigate for a couple of days because there was no power? And Eskom takes forever to fix cables. Anything like that that could have a significant effect on your data here, because you might still remember what happened this season. But if I had to ask you, okay, but what happened in the second week of October 2016? Would you be able to know, to remember that off memory? I can never do that. I can barely remember what I did last week. So yeah, it just makes it easier. You know, open up some space in your brain, put it down on paper, then your brain doesn't have to remember it. It makes space for other useless information, like cats have 9 toes. Was 4 to 10 December max temperature of over 30 degrees? Thanks, Andrew. So that was this week. Okay, so what's happening? That's still active growth. Your fruit is already on the tree. Then, if they harvest end of Jan, isn't that arky coral stadium? That's quite a sensitive stage to have stress. So I know it was, but there was a cool period. When was that cool, Andrew? Since it looks like you've got some weather data there. What was when did we have that rain? Was it the last week of December, or was it the second last week of December? Because I know there was rain in December, and I think it was just before Christmas Day, just before Christmas. So it was maybe this week. So yeah, that's what makes it so important when you start doing these seasonal analysis. Is go look at what happened. What did the weather do? That will all make a difference in your data when you start comparing different years with each other, because you can't take the blame for everything that goes wrong. I mean, you're working with a natural product that's in nature that you have very little control over the climate with. Yeah, so you can do this. You can always print these pages and save them. There's a lot of things that you can do with this data. If you get stuck, that number is just going to come to me in any way. So just phone me directly. I'll put up my contact details again. Oh, there's little rain. No, that's not much. 6 millimeters. Okay, that's quite interesting. But yeah, so it's good to have those type of notes and records to keep going back to it. So yeah, like I said, this number, the phone is anyway redirected so that it comes to me. So you can just phone me directly if you need any help. I think we've gone through almost everything. I think we've gone through actually everything now. Never mind almost everything. I think we've done everything now. So let's quickly go back to my fields. Yeah, so we've covered all the bases now. We've covered all the fields, modified parameters, smart export field data. So what I've actually done, we're almost out of time, but let me just quickly mention this. One of our users wrote as a macro to convert the data that we currently see in this format, that's like the data on the columns, into a much more user-friendly way to then make pivot tables out of it. So I constructed like a pivot table template where after you've done all your data, you just paste all the data in there, and then you filter according to crop category and things and make your own tables. And it's set up in such a way that all the weekly data sets, the graphs are all underneath each other, and the instantaneous data sets are all underneath each other. I'm just going to quickly show you, just to show you the possibility of what we can do. And if you need any help with that, I can help you with that as well. Waar is ek? Ek is hier. I am a sucker for pivot table. I really like my pivot tables. So, maar hierdie ene gebruik as voorbeeld. So what you do is with this macro, you run it, it converts the data into a format that looks like this. It's called one parameter value per row per week. And then you've got your values there, everything is off of it. And then when you paste the data in there, this is then so you convert the data, this is like a template file. You delete this data, you paste your data in here, and you go to this block analysis, and all you do is you say refresh all data. And then it puts all your files in here, all your fields. And what's nice is that, see, there's your 4 data sets, biomass, actual ET, ET deficit, and your biomass water use efficiency, is you can filter where on FruitLook the dates are set of what the season is. You can create your own season in here and say, I don't want to see from August. I only want to see from September to the end of March. That's it. That's my period that I want to see in. And then all the fields have the same color through each of these these graphs. So it's easy to spot, like this little blue one here, Dijkerfontein, keeps standing out the whole time. So it's easy to kind of spot them. But what's nice about it, each of these graphs are linked to a table. So this biomass production is linked to this tab here called biomass production. And you can then filter it and say, okay, you keep the parameter the same, but instead of having that category, I want to look at that category. And I want to filter. I want to filter my dates. Date filter between, and let's say I only want to see from the beginning of September till the 1st of April. Oh look, that's next to me. Okay, that's not a good date. Let me filter that again. Oh, that because it's 2018. Okay. There we go. So now I've changed it in this table. It automatically changes it in the graph. But you have to do the graphs all on their own, and you can select to see less fields, or I wouldn't go more than 10. And then what's nice is because the dates are automatically set, it automatically then calculates your cumulative biomass for the actual ET. It automatically then calculates for just that period your actual ET, your ET deficit, and for the biomass water use efficiency, I set it on the average water use efficiency. So what you can do is, it's the same, you can download all your data and then you just keep filtering it. And what you can then do is, it's set up in such a way that you can then say, okay, this is all the rooibos fields in Dijkerfontein or whatever. And then if you go to print, I did it so that it makes it in a report like this, so that you can then keep it, and then you can keep changing the details. So it's like a template file that you keep dropping your data into it, or you drop your data into it and you just keep playing with filters over and over again, that you can do it. It takes a little time, especially if you have a big data set, to convert that data. But this isn't for a week to week type of thing. This is what you do at the end of the season, which is perfect for now, to look at all your different data sets. How did they compare? What blocks did we treat the same? Where did we make changes? Did they make a significant difference, those changes, or how does it look now? So if you are interested, I can send this to you via email. I made a little small instructional manual with it as well, and send you the on how to use it. So just pop me an email. And we can have a look at that. So that's basically it, guys. I know I dumped a lot of information on you today, but the best thing to learn FruitLook is keep using it. The more you use it, the easier it becomes. And if you get stuck, don't just go and leave it. Phone me, WhatsApp me. I get it a lot that if someone can't explain any of the data, they literally take a photo of the screen and say, Annelien, help. And that's what I'm there for. I love to help you guys to be as efficient as possible. So yeah, either Dianca or me, contact us and we'll help you with anything you want. Okay, guys, if you have any further questions, thanks, Andrew. I'm glad you had a good recap. Listen, these webinars are going to run every 2 weeks. But what we do is we're alternating between Afrikaans and English. So this one is English. The one in the middle of the month is always English, and then the one in the beginning of the month is always in Afrikaans. So you are more than welcome to attend them. So we're going to keep having these. So even if you want to go on your own, just go through everything. And then if you just want to go back and ask what is a certain thing, or you don't understand where something is, then you can attend just a specific part of it, or you can do the whole webinar again. It's free. It's free, and you don't have to go anywhere. That's the great thing about webinars. Or if you want to, I can also send you the recording of it, of this webinar, that you can also then watch it afterwards if you want to just get a recap again. So yeah, thank you so much for attending, and I hope you guys have a lovely day. At least the sun here in Stellenbosch side has actually got some heat to it today and not just light. Because about 2 days ago, I didn't trust the sun, just made light and then had no warmth, but today there's at least some heat going there. I gauge my heat through my cat. Where she moves, I go. Anyway, guys, have a great day. And we'll chat to you guys soon. Bye.